there's something about getting off the plane into a different culture. And I'm like, I know, I can relate to you. I feel it. And it's just, there's just so much more in the world that we're sheltered from. And we don't get to experience that. But when you do, you realize how big the world is and how much there is that we don't know.
Welcome to Hawaii Real. I have with me Fabian Patterson. He is the owner-operator of Change Is Fitness, and he's going to talk to us today about a little bit about the virtual fitness that he's been going through with the COVID shutdown and everything. But on top of that, he's also starting his own podcast. It's called Talking with Myself, and he's got it on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Fabian, thank you so much for coming on. And ladies, you're going to love his Jamaican accent. Go.
Yes, it's amazing to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for coming on. Such short notice. Actually, you were supposed to come on last week, but we had the hurricane thing, and then the hurricane was just like, avoid, it's a quarantine at Hawaii, so I'm going to avoid Hawaii.
It was pretty exciting, right? I was like, never have I seen a hurricane shifted so fast, so late in the game. Like,
yeah, it was just like trying to avoid us.
It was like, no,
can't go to Hawaii. What got you started in podcasting, man?
I have a lot of thoughts. But
you got real deep, even before we got on the air, like about your history and how you started your fitness business, and then you're wearing your shirt therapy session. So you got your clothing line therapy session. And then that led into the podcast eventually, right? Eventually,
yeah. So my fitness business started in 2015, actually, and then didn't really kick off until 2017. But it dates all the way back to about 2010, when I basically tried to commit suicide. And
just to be clear, you were U.S. Army before this, right?
I was.
You've been deployed?
Yes.
So you got the PTSD and stuff?
Yeah. So 13 plus years in the U.S. Army. I love it. I love it.
Thank you
yes.
for that service.
You're welcome. And 3 combat tours. And after my second combat tour, I came back and just a lot of stuff happened and a lot of stuff was going on at the time. And I fell into depression, which I didn't know I had or could have gotten. But later on, it just kind of came out and I tried to commit suicide. Thank God I didn't. I have an 11-year-old daughter and she was 2 at the time. So she was the person that actually prevented that from happening that night. And the next day, I know that I couldn't go home because if I did, honestly, I wouldn't be sitting here today. So I wound up in a gym and walked out about 2 hours later feeling like I could do anything I wanted to do. Like somehow being in there, I found strength, which I didn't know I had, and kept doing that. Because I didn't know anything else, but I knew that kept me for that long. So the next day I woke up, all those depression thoughts and the suicide ideations, everything came back. And I was like, okay, go back to the gym. Mm-hmm. That helped yesterday, go back to the gym. And I did that for months on end. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I don't believe in counseling, but I need to do something. So I went to counseling and that actually helped. So the gym and counseling together brought me out of that deep, dark hole, I guess, that I was in. And from that came therapy session, because the gym was my therapy. Every time I went to a gym session, it was my therapy. So I created therapy session.
Yeah.
And then someone was talking to me and they're like, dude, you're just so good into fitness. And, it's just like this thing that just oozes. And why don't you just create a business? And I was like, yeah, okay. And I love fitness. So I figured, yeah, if it's something I love and I could share it with people and they could find their strength too through fitness, then sure, why not? Mm-hmm. And I created Change is Fitness because I believe change is fitness. It comes through fitness. And the tagline for the company is Be Your Change. Mm-hmm. So having people learn to be their change through fitness is the mindset behind a business. And then eventually I realized like that is just not enough because there's still all these thoughts and still all these, ideas and stuff that I need that I need to get out. So it's like, how do I do that? Podcasts.
Yeah, it's the great way to get your thoughts out, in this day and age, especially with the kind of experiences you've had. Like you've got stories to tell.
Yeah.
Right.
So the podcast was like, I was sitting there talking to my wife and I was like, I have all these thoughts, like, how should I tell people? Like, it's not a podcast about interviewing, but how should I tell people? And I was like, well, there are thoughts with myself that I'm having these conversations with myself. What if the podcast is titled Talking with Myself? Yeah. So I did. And I'd created this really cool video ad where I was literally on a couch talking with myself.
You spliced yourself on two sides of the couch. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I love it. I mean, there's just a lot of thoughts that I have. And I think I have this mindset too, where it's just like, there's so many things that we're told to believe, and so much information that we're given that's actually not accurate. And I question a lot of those information, and I question a lot of that information, and I question a lot of those thoughts and those things that are just kind of face front to us. And that's kind of what the podcast too is about, are these things true? Really? If that's the case, why did this happen? Why did that happen? And, and just kind of putting that all in the forefront, because we're so controlled and herded in directions that, we need to be or where we should be. And we don't even think twice about it in a sense. So,
because we're getting, information from all these outside sources, either, other family members, news media, teachers, bosses, coworkers, and that kind of shifts our focus and our direction where we're going. But we never really try to stop, and think about what's really going on with us and what decisions can we make versus what decisions are being made for us.
Exactly. And that's the main directives in the podcast is like, start thinking for yourself. What information are you being fed to lead you in a direction, and where should you actually be going? So the intro to the podcast just kind of starts off with, it's a bi-weekly controversial podcast that challenges everything about societal norms.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because societal norms is, you're a kid, you're born, you go to elementary school, middle school, high school, you graduate from there, typically either go on to trade school or college, and then get a job for somebody else, pay your bills, get a house, get an apartment, find a spouse, have kids, stay in that job, retire.
Exactly.
I mean, but there's more to life than just that.
Right? There's so much more to life than just that. I was saying the other day to my brother and I was having a conversation actually, and he was reposting a picture of him going to Ethiopia, visiting Ethiopia, and he's just like, there's just something about getting off the plane into a different culture. And I'm like, I know, I can relate to you. I feel it. And it's just, there's just so much more in the world that we're sheltered from, and we don't get to experience that. But when you do, you realize how big the world is, and how much there is that we are, and we don't know.
And we say we, you're talking about.
And when I say we, I mean, as a society, as Americans. Yeah. And because I think in America, mostly, I think all countries, but America, there's this American sense of America, center of the universe.
Yeah.
We are it.
It's definitely an American trait. Yeah.
And I'm an American. I love America. I mean, 13 years for this country, and I love this country. But there is that mindset, and you see it when you go to different countries. I've traveled the world, South Korea, Germany, and you could not just by looking at an individual, but you could pick out an American.
Yeah.
Just by the way they act and carry themselves.
Yeah. I went to Japan a few years ago, and you could tell where the Japanese, the local Japanese were, and an American Japanese person walking through the crowd or just talking and conversing. And I actually saw some of my friends there who are from here, but they're Japanese. They're full Japanese. And when I saw them there, I was like, they stood out, not just because they're my friends, but they stood out from the rest of the crowd as Americans. It was kind of weird, but you could totally tell.
Yeah, and I think it's a part of that is not only our culture, but it's the parameters that are set for our society, our culture, and our country. Like, here's an example. There's hardly any other news information that's shown in America and as a TV channel, right?
You mean like international?
Like international,
right?
You don't have like a Brazilian TV channel or like a TV channel with Puerto Rico just about that country. And if there's information about that country, it's filtered through our TV news network, right? So that information that you get from that country is only the information that you want to be seen, or they want you to see. Mm-hmm. But when I went to Canada, I was in Canada visiting, and half the TV channels in Canada were Americans.
Right. So Canadians are getting an American perspective and also a Canadian perspective.
Yeah. And I was in Germany, and there were several American channels on the German regular TV channels.
You're like, America.
Right.
Is this, like in Germany, were you on base, or was that like local Germany?
It was local Germany. Wow. I was there visiting. So a few years ago, a friend of mine was stationed in Germany previously to us being friends, and he had met people there who came to visit here. We all became friends, and we all went on a trip to Germany. And I was there for 2 weeks visiting. Love Germany, by the way. It's like amazing. The food, my God.
The beer.
The beer.
Yeah.
What's crazy about their beer is like they don't bring them in cases, they bring them in crates. So there's like 36 beers per crate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, you have those channels there, there in Germany, but you come here, there's not a German channel, like,
right?
On a regular TV.
There's nothing. Well, I mean, we have like the Japanese and the Korean channels here,
right?
That's few and far between. It's mostly game shows and soap operas, right?
Soap operas and stuff. Yeah. So, it's thoughts like that makes me think, like, why is that, right? And why is that way? Is that just normal, or is that just a form of boxed control?
I think it's a form of box control to an extent.
Yeah.
Because especially in today's political climate, it's like, I would want to see more outside news. Like, what do other countries' news outlets report on what's going on in the United States? Because then you can kind of see a slight difference, maybe here and there, as opposed to what the news media is just regurgitating here.
Mm-hmm. It's nuts because I know. So I have family in Canada, and it drives me nuts. The views that they have of America, it's so bad.
Right. If you're outside the country and you're just watching mainstream media, like the whole country's burning down. It's obviously not happening.
Right.
It's happening in some places, like some few 3 or 4 cities, but I mean, that's not the majority of the country. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not even close.
No.
So I think it's just one of those directives where it's just like, feed this to get this perspective and to get this thought planted. And then that thought becomes truth per se. Nuts.
It is. That's what I got to say. Nuts. Do you have family back in Jamaica?
I do, actually.
Do you still talk to them and stuff?
Thank God for WhatsApp. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I talk to a family back home. I have nephews, nieces, aunts, uncles. No brothers. One brother back there, older brother. But for the most part, everyone is all over. Brother in England.
So your family's pretty spread out.
Yeah. So pretty spread out. 11 siblings.
Spread out. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Never been back to Jamaica though since I left.
Okay.
That's I don't know, maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
I'm from there. I live there. I know what it's like.
How old were you when you came to the United States?
15.
15.
Yeah. It's pretty
So that's high school age. I mean, you're coming over here talking with a deep Jamaican accent, right?
Yeah, man.
Okay, so you were stationed here at Schofield before, and then you got sent out to Fort Drum, New York, and then you made your way back.
Yes.
Luckily, right?
Luckily.
So I wanted to ask you, what's it like being in Hawaii with the cultural identity? Because you're Black, you full-blooded American, but you're also Jamaican, and you have a military background. Because the military, that's a different culture altogether right there, right? Mm-hmm. Notice anything, or is there anything that stands out, or do you have any stories on that with regards to being here in Hawaii?
I think that when it comes on to culture in Hawaii and being here, I have never experienced any differences from local Hawaiians. I've always felt welcomed. It's just other residents of Hawaii who live here who aren't local Hawaiian, being around that different culture. And I think it's just kind of an extension of the mainland America. I have to make sure that I carry myself a certain way and I say certain things. Because one of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is, even though I speak this way, instead of talking like this, like more of like a, yeah, man, I'm gonna say kind of thing, like Jamaican talking, right? But I don't speak like that. So people automatically, once I speak, they automatically say, oh, he's American. But then ever so often, there's a slight accent or something, and then people are like, oh, where are you from? Because you don't sound American now.
You sound like Caribbean.
You sound Caribbean, and I'm from Jamaica. And now it becomes a topic of, when did you get here? How did you, and I feel like I don't mind the questions, but I think that if we're Americans and we're Americans, and especially here in Hawaii, I don't consider Hawaii to be America. It's Hawaii. The culture is so much different, so much richer. And the people are, the people are hella nicer. Yeah. But there is that difference of whenever I go out in public, and I know that I'm going to be around a more diverse group of people, I have to make sure that I carry myself in a way that I don't get categorized as, another Black guy. Right. And
how do you see yourself, if not that?
Well, I see myself.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just like, I want to know, what is your thought process?
My thought process is, I see myself not even as an American first. I see myself as a human being. And then that's how I see everyone until you show me otherwise,
Right.
But I believe that's how I see myself. And then I'm an American, and then I'm me. I'm Jamaican before I'm an American, and then I'm me. But I don't represent left or right or center or either one of them, because I just see myself as a human being. And I think as human beings, it is our sole responsibility to be human beings to other human beings.
Right.
So yeah, there is that difference where it's just like automatically, if that difference is notified or noticed, then I get put in a category of like, oh yeah, he's the Black Jamaican guy that's over there. That's him. Yeah. And I don't mind it because by cultural definition, that's who I am. Mm-hmm. Right. But I don't think that should be a title or a label that's given. Right. Yeah. There was,
because you'd rather be seen as like a fitness instructor, podcaster, what would that be?
Wow. Yeah.
Because those are things that you've made for yourself.
Those are
not necessarily things that you were born with or raised from. Right.
Right. That's a really good question. I don't think I want to be seen as either. Mm-hmm. I'm Fabian.
Yeah.
But I think if I was supposed to be seen for one of them, right, the choice was there that has to be made, more towards fitness, because that's me. Like, I think that I've immersed myself so much into fitness that it is now a part of my personality, and it's what I do. Like, there's a shirt I saw a few weeks ago, and it says introvert but willing to talk about fitness. And I feel that's me. For the most part, I am very quiet. I'm an introspective person. But when it comes to fitness, I could talk your ear off.
Yeah. And that's how introverts are, right? I mean, you get them going on one topic that they love and they're passionate about, they can go.
Yeah.
But it's everything else. They can't just blah, blah, blah about a wide variety of things. 'Cause that's kind of how I am too. It's like, if I can't find something to nail on and talk about, then I sometimes just shut up and just sit there. And then after we're all done talking, it's like I'm exhausted. I'm tired. Like when the day is done, I'm just like, I'm done dealing with people.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly how I am.
But then you chose like fitness to like be an instructor for people. So I guess, because you're still focused, right, with your fitness and teaching people and instructing people.
Yeah. It's a different realm. Mm-hmm. Walking into the gym, I come alive. Yeah. It's that is where life for me begins, in a sense. And it's weird. Like, it's like breathing fresh air when I walk in.
No, it's like your place, what is that? Not the heaven place.
Zen.
Yeah. Because I get that, like, because I play hockey. So I get that when I go to the rink. Because I know it's going to be good or bad, win or lose. It's going to be a good time.
Yes.
As long as I don't get injured. Oh, sorry. As long as I don't get injured. It's going to be a good time. And surfers get the same thing too, right? Joggers, bicyclers.
Yeah. It's almost euphoric.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you try to impart that and teach that to other people and your customers and stuff?
Yes, it is. It is something I strongly believe in teaching to my clients, but it has to be taught from a different perspective. For me, it's primal. It comes instinctual, but for clients, it needs to be taught on a mind muscle directives. Like, think about what you're doing and let that thought carry the movement, right? So if you're doing a squat, think about every single muscle engaging and moving, extending and retracting in that squat. Think about where the weight is, where it should be, how it's moving, and the direction of the movement. Now your focus is on that, and everything else is obsolete because you're no longer focusing on what you look like in the mirror, who's talking in the background, right? Is there something moving else outside, or
who's looking at me? Kind of
who's looking at me?
Focus on the muscles. That's why you're here. That's why you're doing this.
This is why you're doing it. Yeah. So the mind-muscle connection is the approach to teaching that flow state, state of flow.
Now, when you're working people out, do you work them out till they're like sore and painful, or do you just kind of work them out till they're happy and, cheerful and glad to have worked out so they come back again?
Yes.
Because I did CrossFit one time and it kicked my butt, and I was just like, I'm not going back. I went back a second time, kicked my butt even worse. I was like, I'm definitely not going back because I couldn't walk.
Fitness, my philosophy on fitness in general, it's supposed to be or it's supposed to become a part of who you are. So you shouldn't feel like, one, you're going well out of your way to do the things you need to do, and you should not be able to wake up the next morning and not walk, right? You should not,
You should be able to walk.
You should be able to walk, right? So double negatives. You should be able to, double negatives. You should be able to walk. So I don't believe in dragging people through the ringer and just, like making you feel like you just went to hell and back. Mm-hmm. That's not what fitness is about. It's about growth. It's about improvement. And it's about feeling your best, like you said, feeling like you've accomplished something, and you want to do it again. So in that sense, whoever my client is and whatever their level of fitness is, that's where we start, right? If you can only do 10 push-ups, we're only going to start with 10 push-ups. We're not gonna be there like, you need to do 20. No, you're not getting up till you do 20. Because first of all,
this isn't the Army.
This isn't the Army. Right? And we're all adults. Right? If you can only do 10 push-ups, then you could probably only do 10 push-ups and you're telling the truth. And that's where we need to start. We need to make sure you're doing those 10 correctly. And then we'll throw one in. So now you do 11. And then we do 12. And then we do 13. And then we go from there. Same thing with working out. If you can only work out for 30 minutes, then we're going to make sure that 30 minutes is a good quality 30 minutes of working out, to where you leave feeling like you worked out, but not feeling like you don't want to work out again. And that's the beauty of fitness for me. That's where the growth comes in, because it's achievable, and it's something that you can keep, because if you do it incrementally, it becomes a habit, and you no longer have to think about it whenever you do it, because you're like, oh yeah, I did 15, I could do 16, that's easy.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head when you said that it becomes a habit, because that's how working out should be, or exercising should be. It shouldn't be a chore.
Right.
It should be something that's done daily. And I myself, with the pandemic, I've just fallen out of exercising day to day. But before that, because I haven't been going to the gym, I was going to the gym, pretty much 5 days a week, religiously to work out. And it just became habit. And if I wasn't doing it, it felt like I was missing something in that day. Like my accomplishment was missing. Mm-hmm. And the endorphins and stuff. Yeah. I was missing that. So, I do need to get back to making it a habit.
Yeah. And that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a habit. And that is why it is a journey, right? It's a marathon and not a sprint, right? Because you take your time to make it a habit, and then it becomes a part of your life. Just like you said, when you were doing it for so long, then, the pandemic happened, and you you stopped because gyms were closed, it felt like something was missing. And that's what it's supposed to be. And it's just like eating, right? We've done it our whole lives. And if you forget to eat, you're like,
something's missing.
Something's missing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what fitness should be. It should become a habit. You take your time, get into it, and do it.
So with the pandemic, how has your business model changed with, because I know you were talking about going on Zoom and doing like virtual fitness regimes with people?
Yes. So the pandemic, I think, affected everyone. Also my business, but luckily for me, I was able to shift. So before I didn't do online training, I didn't do online coaching. But because of the pandemic and social distancing, and so I shifted to doing online training, and I ended up liking it in a sense. So the business model now has online training in it, and it's been successful actually. Within the first 30 days, we pulled in 5 clients into it, and it's just word of mouth.
Nice.
Yeah. Pretty simple setup, I guess. We have an online platform, a training app that we use. We do live links through from Zoom through the platform. So whoever my clients, they have access to it. They have a calendar that tells them when their classes are and stuff like that, and they're able to rewatch the workouts. So we do the live twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays. They show for the live, and then if they miss it, they could go back into the app and watch the post-edited, uploaded version of the workout, and it's there for 30 days. So that gives me a way to still get that content to my clients and that training to them without not having a gym.
Very nice.
Yeah, so it's really good there. And it's a really good shift because now I realize that I can actually extend my reach further than just that one-on-one.
Right.
Yeah.
So it might be a little silver lining around the big dark cloud that is this pandemic, right? You actually become far more successful because you went digital and stuff. So, because we've seen that with a lot of other businesses and stuff. Some fail and some are like flourishing. So,
yeah.
Fabian, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, Change is Fitness. That's with an IZ.
Yes.
Talking with myself.
Talking with myself.
That's his new podcast. I'll throw links on there. Thank you so much for coming on again. It's been a good story.
Yes, it was lovely being here. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Stay happy, Hawaii.